Hi, this is Jenny Brav of Radiant Wholeness Healing. And today I want to do a talk and tap on shifting timelines. And while there are different ways of talking about this, different language we could be using, I like the framework of shifting timelines because I think it captures the energetics of what many of us are going through well. And what I mean by shifting timelines is really when we evolutionarily, in terms of our personal growth, are going from one iteration of self, one paradigm, one way of being in and looking at the world to another iteration of self. And often in the spiritual communities, we think of the timeline we are stepping out of as being lower vibration, often more based in scarcity, connected to old wounds that we are carrying in us that we are working through. And when we're shifting timelines, at least some part of us is ready to let that go and to step into a version of us that is higher vibration, that is more ready to really claim and embody our gifts, our full energy, what we came into the world to bring and share with others. And unfortunately for us, unlike the butterfly that goes from caterpillar, chrysalis, caterpillar goop, and then emerges as a butterfly, our transition periods, periods of death and rebirth is another way of looking at this. And I will link below other videos that I think can complement this one. Our process is rarely linear, so we might start feeling like we're embodying the new timeline, and then something gets activated and triggers the old patterns, or part of us gets really scared and is doubling down on and grasping onto old coping strategies, old defense mechanisms. So it can often feel like this dance, even maybe a tug of war, push-pull between the parts, might feel like the one that is in the expansion is in a fight with the one that is holding on, scared, grasping. And I know for myself, I've been in this shift for a couple of years now, and that time has brought to the surface, as it does, a lot of the old scarcity and survival beliefs, ways of being, ways of coping, both my own and also like core ancestral wounds and traumas, as well as karmic. And what I feel like I'm stepping into is reorienting towards joy and beingness that does not need to be earned or proven, really letting go of paradigms of push, of stress, of sacrificing my body and my nervous system for the greater good, for the projects I'm bringing into the world. And this new iteration that no longer feels available or possible, which all of this, all these changes can be extremely disorienting since we're so used to getting our energy or motivation or sense of value one way, and now we're really being called to let that go. And it requires a lot of trusting and a lot of releasing, a lot of surrender. I know for me, I mean, really from the very beginning of my spiritual path, whenever I have checked in with my guides or had questions about why things seemed wobbly or hard or places I felt stuck, the answer I've received has invariably been trust and surrender, with other specific invitations often attached to that. And that has evolved over time. And I've also developed practices where I can get more fine-tuned and specific guidance from my soul self, higher self, guides. And for me, often that has come to me through automatic writing. Writing has always been one of my conduits for deeper knowing, one of the ways I access it, but also water. So when I'm in the shower or swimming, I will often get guidance. And now I found with practice, I can just ask the question in my head and often get answers, which is a relief, I have to say, because that's really, for me, the most meaningful connection I can have or place of guidance and a way of making decisions, of determining next steps, is to really be aligned and listen to that inner voice, that deeper knowing, rather than my head, which can be very good at figuring out the pros and the cons and mapping things out, but for me is not the most reliable compass. So I think I will do a longer meditation on shifting timelines as a separate video, because that seems to work pretty well and will mean that we can focus this one on this introduction and then doing some tapping, although I often close with at least some dropping in. If you want to pause before we start tapping, just to check in with yourself and feel into what this old iteration of self, new iteration of self might be, what emotions it's bringing up, what old beliefs it's bringing up, where you feel it in your body and what you feel you're being called into. That might be helpful. That might guide the answers that you integrate into the tapping. Otherwise, if you want to just feel into what arises as we tap, we will jump right in. So tapping on the side of your hand, taking nice deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth. And you'll repeat after me, either out loud or in your head. And feel free to modify any of the words if what I'm saying doesn't quite match your situation. And also feel free to pause if you ever need a little more time on one train of thought or on a point. All right, so taking a deep breath. Even though I'm in between timelines, And it can feel pretty disorienting with one foot in one foot in the other. Feeling the tug of war between the two. I'm open to loving and accepting myself deeply and completely, even in this in-between place that I'm in. Deep breath. And it's possible, even though it might feel uncomfortable, that I'm exactly where I need to be. Good, deep breath. Oh, tapping all over the head. High shifting timelines inside of the eyebrows. Hello, in between place. Outside of the eyes. High part of me that really doesn't like transitions. Under the eyes. I see you. Under and above the lips. I feel you. Breathe. Under the collarbone. I know this can be uncomfortable. Middle of the sternum, especially for the part of us that learned a long time ago. Ribs. That change is unpredictable. Side of the body, under the armpit. Deep breath. Wrist. And it's possible that we are safe now. Other wrist. That we are exactly where we need to be. All over the head, breathe. And I acknowledge the part of me that has one foot in the new timeline, outside of the eyes. Breathe. Under the eyes. Thanks for showing me what is possible. Under and above the lips. For inviting me into this place. Under the collarbone of flow. Middle of the sternum. Of more ease. Ribs. Where I get to be me. Side of the body, free, inside and outside of the wrist, unapologetically. Other wrist, this place of both and. all over the head, where I don't have to sacrifice my agency inside of the eyebrows to have connection outside of the eyes. This place of abundance under the eyes, trust under and above the lips, interconnectedness under the collarbone, where I am being invited back in, middle of the sternum, to the web of life. Ribs, breathe. That universal truth side of the body that every living being belongs. Wrist and is welcome. Other wrist. That we are all inherently worthy all over the head and enough inside of the eyebrows. I acknowledge this part of me outside of the eyes and all of the steps I've taken under the eyes to come back to my true self under and above the lips, to deepen into full embodiment under the collarbone, to reclaim my energetic sovereignty, middle of the sternum. Ribs. And I acknowledge the part of me that still has a foot in the old side of the body. I see you. Wrist, I feel you. Other wrist, I have so much love and compassion for you. At least my higher self does. Tapping all over the head. I know an impatient part can sometimes get frustrated inside of the eyebrows, but that's actually also part of the old. Outside of the eyes. Hello, part that is scared under the eyes. Grasping under and above the lips, clinging to the old for dear life. Under the collarbone. I know you're scared. Middle of the sternum. It's okay to be scared. Ribs. I know that you're not sure that it's safe. Side of the body, parts of you have not been updated to current time. Wrist, your reliving a hologram of the old other wrist, still trapped in that trauma capsule. Tapping all over the head of when it really wasn't safe inside of the eyebrows for you to be your whole authentic self outside of the eyes, to shine as brightly as you were meant to under the eyes. Breathe. Under and above the lips. And the good news is, under the collarbone, in this new timeline we are shifting into, middle of the sternum, there is no urgency. Ribs. Wasted time is not a thing. Side of the body. There's no way to miss the boat. Wrist, because we are the boat. Other wrist. So this gets to take as long as it needs to. Tapping all over the head. And the most important thing inside of the eyebrows is for you, outside of the eyes, the part that is scared, under the eyes, unsure, under and above the lips, to feel safe, under the collarbone, seen, middle of the sternum, acknowledged, ribs, witnessed, side of the body, honored, wrist. You are the most important part of this process. Other wrist. In the old timeline, tapping all over the head, the old paradigm, inside of the eyebrows, we learned to dismiss and shun, outside of the eyes, certain parts of ourselves under the eyes, often the most vulnerable and scared parts. Under and above the lips, to feel less powerless. Under the collarbone, to tick off items in our to-do list, middle of the sternum, to get to goals and achievements, ribs to please others, side of the body to be a good ... wrist, child, parent, spouse, employee, whatever it might be. Other wrist. We learn to override our natural rhythm, tapping all over the head, our sacred yes, our sacred no, inside of the eyebrows. We learn to make ourselves small outside of the eyes or puff ourselves up under the eyes. We learn to barter parts of ourselves. Under and above the lips, breathe. In exchange for something. Under the collarbone, real or imagined. Middle of the sternum. And the good news is, ribs, that in this new timeline, side of the body, all parts are welcome. Wrist, the part that is scared and grasping. Other wrist gets to be held and loved by the part that is evolving. All over the head, expansive. Inside of the eyebrows. Has so many more resources outside of the eyes and choices. Under the eyes, breathe. Under and above the lips, it is possible, it is safe now. Under the collarbone, I get to do this in divine timing, middle sternum, at my own pace. Ribs, it's possible there is no right or wrong. Side of the body, no way to mess this up. Wrist, no shoulds or expectations. Other wrist, just an invitation. Good, breathe, pause. And let's gather from your neural pathways, your thought patterns, your heart, your gut, your nervous system, and all places where you feel the old paradigm parts that are maybe tight, tired, holding, depleted, jittery. And when and if you're ready again, trusting your own knowing, let's hold the parts that are still anchored into the old timeline, that old paradigm, the parts that are afraid and sad and lonely and angry and frustrated and feel powerless and trapped. The parts that are scared it's not safe, that are holding the either or beliefs, the transactions we learned were necessary to be both safe and have some connection. Anything we learned to barter for something else, any heavy energy, dense energy. And this can be our inner child wounds, it can be ancestral wounds, it can be karmic, collective wounds we're tapping into. In this period, the collective wounds are very visible and loud, and often activating something parallel in us. So let's nod to all of this and breathe. And just sensing, feeling, imagining that your breath, that the quality of compassion and care and any benevolent guides that are present that have our highest and best interest as their sole intent are surrounding all of this sacred wounding with so much care, honoring everything that we, our ancestors, past life selves, or the collective have been through, or still going through. Nodding to all of that, acknowledging it, recognizing that the coping strategy is the beliefs that were developed to make sense of things were absolutely brilliant and necessary. They served a purpose. They had wisdom in them, as did patterns of disconnecting from and suppressing unprocessed emotions, the trauma, parts that seemed unacceptable or scary or vulnerable. And with gratitude, we can either put this down for now, if it feels like we're not quite ready to release it, or we can send all of this to the earth, to the sun, to fire energy, to the wind and air, to the light of source, to the oceans. Can tear it up if it feels like a contract, whatever feels right to you, just releasing any cords that are tying you to the old version of self. And now I invite you to close your eyes or soften your gaze and just invite forth a version of you that is already fully landed with both feet into the new timeline, the new iteration of self. Reaching across time and space to that version of you, letting them know that you're still toggling between the two. Sometimes you fall into the in-between space. Sometimes you feel more like you're in one, the other. There's a bit of a tug of war going. Ask this version of you what qualities they embody, what they know about themselves, about the world. And if it feels relevant, maybe you can ask if there's an element, an animal, a plant, a color, a vibration, a sound that they are particularly connected to. That might help you remember this version of self, this way of being. And again, if and when it feels appropriate, you can semi-merge or fully merge with this version of you. Just feeling what that feels like in your body. Again, knowing that there's no finish line, there's no need to rush, that this process gets to be nonlinear. And for this moment, we get to deepen into what it feels like in your body, in your muscles, in your mind, in your heart, your gut, in your nervous system. When you are merged with this part of you that is in the space of grace, of limitless possibility, of both and, in the lightness, the higher vantage point. And as you tune into this frequency, this way of being, again, just for now, imagine that you are landing with both feet into this version of self. And if there's any part that's not sure, that doesn't know if it's safe, know how to do this, just hold them in your heart with care, presence, just witnessing, not even trying to fix or change, knowing that all these parts are so welcome. They finally get to feel witnessed, safe, embraced, exactly as they are, without needing to change anything or earn it. Or take care of everybody else's needs first. And feel free to pause if you want to spend more time here. Otherwise, gather everything you're feeling and experiencing right now in a color that feels like it represents this state of being, color or colors. Drop all of that into your crown, feeling your neural pathways getting rewired into this state of being, and anchoring this into your nervous system, making space for rest and digest, for clarity, for trust, for allowing, for leaning back and being guided. Feeling this, waking up this frequency on a cellular level in your muscles, in your bones. When you're ready, bringing all of this into your heart, filling all four chambers of your heart with this yumminess, this frequency, this higher vibration. And when you're ready, opening your eyes, sending all of this up and down your timeline, the generations, the lifetime, to all people and places that could use some of this. And then tapping all over this beautiful sacred body, shaking it out, touching something, grounding. Thank you so much for going on this journey with me. As always, like, subscribe if you haven't already, and leave me a comment. It helps the algorithm, and let me know how it went, what you're experiencing in this shifting of timelines. And stay tuned for a longer guided meditation on this.